J.H. Rosny was the pseudonym of Joseph Henry Honor Boex, born 17 February 1856, died 11 February 1940, a French author of Belgian origin who is considered one of the founding figures of modern science fiction. Born in Brussels in 1856, he wrote in the French language, together with his younger brother Sir Justin François Boex under the pen name J.H. Rosny until 1909. After they ended their collaboration, Joseph Boex continued to write under the name Rosny the Elder, while his brother used J.H. Rosny Jr., Rosny the Younger. The story Un Autre Monde, Another World, 1895, establishes that humans share the earth with the land-bound Modigan, Dutch for brave ones, and the airborne Vuren, fires, two infinitely flat and invisible species who cohabit with us. Only a mutant whose vision is superior to that of ordinary men can see them. Kurd Lasswitz, born 20th April 1948, died 17th October 1910, was a German author, scientist, and philosopher. He has been called the father of German science fiction. He sometimes used the pseudonym Velatus. Two Planets, German. Auf zwei Planeten, literally, on two planets, 1897, is an influential science fiction novel postulating intelligent life on Mars by Lasswitz. It was first published in hardcover by Felber in 2 volumes in 1897. There have been many editions since, including abridgments by the author's son Eric Lasswitz, Kajienum, 1948, and Berthard Kiegeland and Martin Molater, Verlag Heinrich Scheffler, 1969. The 1948 abridgment, with incidental parts of the text taken from the 1969 version, was the basis of the first translation into English by Hans H. Rudnick, published in hardcover by Southern Illinois University Press in 1971. A paperback edition followed from Popular Library in 1976. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is an American children's novel written by author L. Frank Baum and illustrated by W. W. Denslow, originally published by the George M. Hill Company in Chicago on May 7, 1900. It has since seen several reprints, most often under the title The Wizard of Oz, which is the title of the popular 1902 Broadway musical adaptation as well as the iconic 1939 musical film adaptation. The story chronicles the adventures of a young farm girl named Dorothy in the magical land of Oz, after she and her pet dog Toto are swept away from their Kansas home by a cyclone. The book is one of the best-known stories in American literature and has been widely translated. The Library of Congress has declared it America's greatest and best-loved homegrown fairy tale. Its groundbreaking success and the success of the Broadway musical adapted from the novel led Baum to write 13 additional Oz books that serve as official sequels to the first story. Baum dedicated the book to my good friend and comrade, my wife, Maud H. Baum. In January 1901, George M. Hill Company completed printing the first edition, a total of 10,000 copies, which quickly sold out. It sold 3 million copies by the time it entered the public domain in 1956. The Purple Cloud is a last man novel by the English writer M.P. Sheil. It was published in 1901. H.G. Wells lauded The Purple Cloud as brilliant, and H.P. Lovecraft later praised the novel as exemplary weird fiction, delivered with a skill and artistry falling little short of actual majesty. The novel formed the basis for the 1959 American film The World, the Flesh and the Devil. Joseph Rudyard Kipling, born 30th December 1865, died 18th January 1936, was an English journalist, short story writer, poet, and novelist. He was born in India, which inspired much of his work. He wrote two science fiction stories, With the Night Mail, 1905, and As Easy as ABC, 1912. Both were set in the 21st century in Kipling's aerial board of control universe. They read like modern hard science fiction, and introduced the literary technique known as indirect exposition, which would later become one of science fiction writer Robert Heinlein's hallmarks. This technique is one that Kipling picked up in India, and used to solve the problem of his English readers not understanding much about Indian society, when writing the Jungle Book. John Griffith London, born John Griffith Cheney, January 12, 1876, died November 22, 1916, was an American novelist, journalist, and social activist. A pioneer in the world of commercial magazine fiction, he was one of the first writers to become a worldwide celebrity and earn a large fortune from writing. He was also an innovator in the genre that would later become known as science fiction. The Iron Heel is a dystopian novel by London, first published in 1908. Generally considered to be the earliest of the modern dystopian fiction, it chronicles the rise of an oligarchic tyranny in the United States. In The Iron Heel, Jack London's socialist views are explicitly on display. A forerunner of soft science fiction novels and stories of the 1960s and 70s, the book stresses future changes in society and politics while paying much less attention to technological changes. The book is unusual among London's writings, and in the literature of the time in general, in being a first-person narrative of a woman protagonist written by a man. Much of the narrative is set in the San Francisco Bay Area, including events in San Francisco and Sonoma County. London's The Scarlet Plague is a post-apocalyptic fiction novel originally published in London Magazine in 1912. Edward Morden Forster, The Order of Merit, The Order of the Companions of Honor, born 1st January 1879, died 7th June 1970, was an English novelist, short story writer, essayist and librettist. The Machine Stops is a science fiction short story, 12,300 words, by Forster. After initial publication in the Oxford and Cambridge Review, November 1909, the story was republished in Forster's The Eternal Moment and Other Stories in 1928. After being voted one of the best novellas up to 1965, it was included that same year in the populist anthology Modern Short Stories. In 1973 it was also included in the Science Fiction Hall of Fame, Volume 2. The story, set in a world where humanity lives underground and relies on the giant machine to provide its needs, predicted technologies such as instant messaging and the internet. Filippo Tommaso Emilio Brunetti, born 22nd December 1876, died 2nd December 1944, was an Italian poet, editor, art theorist, and founder of the Futurist movement. He was associated with the utopian and symbolist artistic and literary community of A.D. Cretel between 1907 and 1908. Brunetti is best known as the author of the first Futurist manifesto, which was written and published in 1909. In it he espouses an artistic philosophy that was a rejection of the past and a celebration of speed, machinery, violence, youth and industry. It also advocated the modernization and cultural rejuvenation of Italy. This eventually led him to write and publish the Fascist Manifesto in 1919. The Immortals, Great Quest. Translated from an unpublished manuscript in the library of the Continental University by Irish clerk and author James William Barlow, published in London in 1909 by Smith, Elder and Company, dealt with an misogynist narrator and his encounter on Venus with a large population of non-Christian socialists, their reincarnation after death, and their eternal quest for God. Thomas Edison was an American inventor and entrepreneur. His film company, Edison Studios, made Frankenstein in 1910. It was written and directed by J. Cyril Dawley. This 14-minute short film was the first motion picture adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The unbilled cast included Augustus Phillips as Dr. Frankenstein, Charles Ogle as Frankenstein's monster, and Mary Fuller as the doctor's fiancée. It's beginning to look like a brain trust in this shortened edition of the timeline. The next installment will see a man, while not really a genius, is just full of chutzpah. It takes a lot of room for that. See you then.